Hey guys, I wanted to bring Rae Grillo on the podcast because she does so many different things. And I feel like people that are entrepreneurs or even thinking about being entrepreneurs really need to be easier on themselves when they shift and change and grow through this experience. And so thank you for coming on here, Rae.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
This is like, I feel like I'm dipping my toes back into the podcast space. I was actually thinking, I was like, man, I really need to put a podcast out or like get in the practice, start practicing, get the microphone going. And yeah, then that's when you reached out to me. And so you felt that prompting.
Isn't that crazy? And I was over here going, I was so intrigued when last we spoke. You did a guest expert training for one of my coaching clients, and you were talking about how you were driving a limo, and I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, I
So,
know. Doing a lot.
so are you still driving the limo?
I am. I moved down part-time now.
Okay.
Um, and so it's like going along with like the theme of the podcast and like going into like the limo space, I was quite resistant to getting a job again.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. And so what led you to go ahead and do that?
So I want to say like back in like 2022, like my crypto stuff, I didn't set myself up for success. And along the way you're gonna find, that thing, it's like, you're up and then you're down. And then sometimes you crash really down and then you go back up on like along the journey. And then sometimes there's the plateau, which seems to be even harder than the downward. So I just ran into a space where I was quite like prideful. I didn't work for like 2 years and I was doing really, really well with um, my business, with crypto. And there came a spot where I think I was like mostly like self-sabotaging. And then also a part of it, I think I was also really prideful on getting a job. However, I was getting to a time period where I was like, I need to. Like this is something that needs to get done. Like I have a little one and I gotta stop being so prideful and I need to get out of my ish. Um, I was finding that I wasn't as disciplined as I used to be. Um, and I sort of, yeah, I just kept like not like in my business, I found that I had a hard time just doing anything and sticking and focusing and staying disciplined. And I would be like working little amount here, little amount there without any results. And so I was like, okay, well, I gotta get a job. And so floral, like I got back into floral and I started doing floral work for some people. And I was like, this isn't enough for me. Like I hate trading my time for money. I just hate doing that. It pisses me off because I'm like, I can make so much more than this. Like I feel like I'm wasting my time here. However, I met some people, it brought back my love of flowers. However, the limo came about because I had a friend who's also an entrepreneur. She got into it. And so she said that the limo business is all commission. Like it's no hour. And I was like, oh, okay, you're speaking my language. And it's tips. Like there's a lot of tips. And so I was like, maybe like I was like, at first I didn't want to do it. I was resistant. I was like, no, I'm gonna stay with the flowers. However, she kept talking about it. And she kept talking about like, I made this much today and then this day. And I was like, okay, like she's sort of selling it for me. And it's pretty good money. It's pretty good money. And she also is like, I'm working on opening up my own floral business. And she was like really promoting, like, you're gonna meet a ton of people that rent limos, they have money. And so maybe you might find your investor that way. And I was like, pondered it for a while. And then I got the job. I'm pretty good at it. And I've had some pretty cool experiences with it. I've met some pretty cool people and I've also driven some pretty well-known people. So it's been putting me in front of a lot of people. However, I was really resistant to it. Like my pride and my ego was just like, it's not for you, like really fight against it. However, I kept getting like these little whispers, like, go for it, do it. So that's how I
So
got
you're
into it.
grateful that you chose to do that then.
Yeah, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
grateful.
I
And I
love
also,
how you brought up all of these things, your ego, your pride, the resistance. and that you weren't as productive, like you were just doing a little here and a little there and not seeing results, because like you could get lazy in the entrepreneur space, right?
Yeah.
You can, because it is easy to work 20 hours or less a week, but it's also important to show off, right? Because we could be in our feminine and be
Yeah.
low and easy. And I'm only working this much. Like, we're recording this podcast right now. This is like a big part of my day, right? As an entrepreneur. I'm putting in, maybe an hour of work, and then this hopefully will produce income down the road, right? But
Yeah.
there's been times in my entrepreneur journey, just like anybody else that is listening right now that is an entrepreneur, where you do question, should I get a job? Am I going to be successful enough? And that pride freaking comes up big time. I've taken quite a bit time off after my husband died, as you did when you had a major loss. And it's not just jumping right back in and all the clients are there and you're making $10,000 months right away. It's not. So you do have to revisit, like, what is it? And so this is also why I wanted to have you on the podcast, because I know so many people question, are they supposed to get a job? But I love how you did it, where it's like, well, did you find that you were more productive in your business after you started with the limo? Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So one, what I really enjoyed, so surrounding my life before I even got the job, I was sort of going through my own like tower moment as well. And so my confidence, my self-esteem was just like, it like plummeted. No money's coming in. I gained like 30 pounds. And I realized, because I joined the LDS church. And so I
Oh,
started so I started changing a lot of my values along the way. There's a lot of things that came up for me that I said I valued this. However, it showed, like, my results showed, like, no, like, you're actually valuing like people pleasing, or like, not saying, like keeping to my word and stuff. And so I learned, like, through the job and like my interactions with people, like I could see, for me, relationships, I can see like results faster. That's just like where I, like, introspective wise, I can see like what's going on and like do some shadow work and whatnot. And it helped bring up my confidence, because one, I had to wear a suit. And then two, it's like, okay, well, I really have to like put in work. Like, I have to go in, I have to, go at this time. I have to go, at the set time for these set days. And then sometimes they might want me to work extra. So it got me back into like the role of like working again, and um grinding for a certain amount of hours. And then I can see like where my vibration was along the way as I was bringing money in. It was, sometimes it'd be a good tip day, or tip week, or like the results, and like where I was at interacting with people, and also practicing like my customer service, practicing sales, because it is something that like I can promote myself and I can sell, because it's commission based, and I can, rein that money in myself if I wanted to. I'm just using someone else's, um, their advertising and their cars. And I did realize along the way, I found out, I was like, okay, like it never like clicked for me how important discipline was, and finding that balance in between my feminine and my masculine energy. And so I was able to see, I'm like, okay, in this instance, like, yes, I love being in my feminine energy. However, in this instance, I need to be logical, and I need to use that structure of the masculine energy in my life right now, versus like having fun and like being feminine and flow with. And so I think that would be like more so like I saw how I can be feminine in the sense as like receiving. Yes, I will receive the money. Yes, like I will like take whatever clients that you give to me, and just trusting that I'll make my tips that day, because some days could be really bad. Um, so that discipline, I really realized, I was like, okay, this is really important, which then I also have been able to translate into my spiritual practice, and I've been able to translate into my physical practice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. It is so important to bring that masculine. And before I took time off, I was like masculine, 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 masculine. And so then I took time off and I'm like feminine, feminine, feminine. So it's like, okay, where is that balance, right? You know,
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
fun, flowy recording the podcast. And then the other where it's like exchanging that time or some time, that's why I love group programs. Like,
Yeah.
you should know you've been in some of my group programs because it's like,
Yeah.
okay, everybody get together and then I'll be there and I'll share my time. And but
Yeah.
a bunch of y'all instead of one and one and one and one. But yeah.
And community is important.
Mm-hmm.
Community is important. And I think along the way too, I have a few friends who I feel like we're on like sort of a similar path. And I think once I started being vulnerable about the issues that I was having and like speaking and like sharing with other entrepreneurs, that, they hit a rough spot too. And so I was like, okay, well, it's not just me. It's not like I'm not the only one struggling. And I had a friend, going through something similar, and she was just telling me like I feel like I have to get a job because it's just like she wasn't creating results that she wanted to.
Yeah.
And I do think that helped with like my my ego just a little bit and my pride.
Yeah.
And then I also just and I was like, this is just a time period in my life. And I am grateful for, getting a job and like getting back on the like I learned a lot about discipline
Yeah.
and
I
being
think for
able to
some
practice
people
that
too, um, it's getting to that point because there was a point when I lived in Michigan where I did and I went and I got a job
balance.
and I had insomnia the whole night before. And it was
Hmm.
at a dry cleaner, believe it or not, which is crazy. It's come
Oh
full
wow.
circle because that was one of my very first jobs. And
Yeah.
I got it through a temp agency and it was supposed to be customer service. And I thought, well, to hell. And it was like $10 an hour or something. And
Yeah.
so I got up and I went in there and they were like, oh no, no, it's not customer service. You're going to be back in the back and you're going to be ironing shirts. And for me, like I had to get to that point for me to be like, fuck this. I am going to show up in my business. I left and left the dry cleaner. I was like, bye, bitches. There is no way I'm going to be back there. Because at the time I was charging $100 an hour for readings.
Yeah.
I'm like, I will have to work 10 hours ironing shirts for 1 hour of what I provide.
Hmm.
And so I went home and I took all the money that I had and I hired a business coach. And then things turned around. But for me, it was, and it's different for everybody.
Yeah.
And I obviously chose the wrong industry. I did not want to be ironing shirts. It's a little bit different than driving a limo, right?
Yeah.
But it was that pivotal point where I was like, this is my dream and I'm going to do whatever it takes. And if I do one reading a day, it's going to be a hell of a lot better than it is working 10 hours a day ironing shirts. And I'm
Mhm.
going to invest in my business. And then things really did turn around for me then. But yeah, I think it is important for entrepreneurs to be vulnerable, like you're saying.
Mhm.
There's so many entrepreneurs that they only share their wins. They're always, bragging, which is important because it helps give your audience social proof that you are helping people win and you do have wins, but it's also equally important to let them know when you're crying in the closet, you
Yeah.
know?
Mhm. Yeah. I feel like once I started opening up and I haven't really opened up maybe a little bit on my platform. However, I've been, like I shared, going through a lot of internal shifts and changes. And I'm finally getting back onto my podcast this Wednesday and talking about butterflies and the transformation journey that I have been on. And like now I feel like, I'm coming out of the chrysalis and I'm like spreading the butterfly wings, like, like just that, yeah, that transformation process. And it took me a while. Um, I feel like what really hit me was I was going through financial stuff. And then I also had a really bad breakup. And then, and then I found Jesus. And so and so like during that period, it really, I found a lot of growth and yeah, like now I feel like I'm doing that. I'm in that transition period again, going from like, okay, I don't want to really do job, like I don't want to work for other people anymore. And so I've been really working on that passion and that commitment to getting my business to be opened and have the shop open and doing something I'm passionate about, and that I love doing for my own, like for my own self, and creating that sort of avenue.
Yeah. You've done a lot then. So, but are you still doing all your other things? Can you share with the audience a little bit about your journey? Because I've been watching you, but they're probably like, what is she doing? Because so now you're driving a limo part-time and you're about to open a flower shop because you do beautiful,
Mhm.
beautiful designs. But what else have you been in?
So I've been also Ubering. I mean, I've had a few photography gigs. That's another like, passion of mine. I love doing that. I've
What is
been
that?
creating content, photography.
Photography.
Yeah, photography. And I've been creating content. I've been making some money from Facebook with my content. I haven't been as on it with my content, and I think a lot of that has to deal with like my self-esteem again. I have seen where I'm not really confident in my body as I used to be. And however, it's like, okay, well, put on your big girl panties and get back out there. I needed to be in like my cocoon for a little bit. Like I needed to reevaluate and reflect and see where I was at. And then the flowers. Like I've had a lot of people reach out to me about, hey, can you teach me this? Or hey, like I need some flowers for this event or for that event. And I was like, everyone's reaching out to me for everything else in the world other than coaching. Like, what's going on here? And I was really struggling. Like, I was like, I am not a quitter. I am not a person to give up. Like, I am going to see this through. I'm going to get my coaching through. And like, there was nothing. It was just like, I think it's like that, like, there's that energy of like needing that needy energy that sort of like repels things. I feel like I was really like so resistant to the idea that maybe I should not be coaching right now, or like really wanting it to work. Like this is what I want versus just like allowing the universe to like guide me and to show me like, hey, like maybe this isn't for you right now, or I don't want this to be for you right now. Like right now, I want you to do something that you're passionate about. And coaching to me, like and like looking for clients and doing those sales, it really started to feel like work versus like when I initially started, like it didn't feel like work. It felt like fun and exciting. And it got to a point where I was just like, this isn't fun anymore. Like I just
Yeah.
not exciting. Like I no wonder why I'm not getting clients because it just feels like work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a very good observation. Yeah, because if it's not fun, then you're not in coherence with the universe. You're pushing against it.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be fun. If it's not a fuck yes, fun, then that's showing up in your content. It's showing up everywhere,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and it's showing
I
even in
got
your
some
sales. You'll use just a certain word that is more like asking someone instead of directing them or whatever it is. It's the energy. Yeah.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I feel like it's important um to let people know that you can do whatever it is that you want to do. Like the universe is not telling you you're not allowed to coach, but being aware and conscious of how you were feeling, that's you telling your own self, this isn't fun.
Yeah.
This feels like work. Ain't nobody want to feel like work. That's
Mm-hmm.
why we didn't want to work in corporate America anyway, because it felt like ugly work for somebody else. So
Mm-hmm.
I love it. I love that you're sharing all of this with the audience because
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's important for people to see the ins and the outs of entrepreneurship and listen to all the things that you're talking about as you're really into your self-development. So you're very conscious, you're very self-aware, and you're asking yourself the valuable questions is this my ego? Like, do I need to like logically think about this and like go drive this limo? But I think too, it's great that you picked that industry because it can feed your coaching practice or your floral shop that you're going to open, and you're going to open it. I see it.
Mm-hmm.
I see it coming.
Yeah, yeah, I'm really excited. Like just you saying that, like I got like little tingles and my body felt, lighter. Um, I'm really excited for the flowers. it was funny because the way that it came about was, during that time I was talking to my friend that actually got me into the limos. Because she's, entrepreneur, she did interior design. And she was like, well, why don't you just open up your own flower shop since you're working for a florist? And I was like, I never thought of that. I went back to when I wrote my vision down, like I want to say before Lennon, like 7 years ago. And bringing that up is like I wanted to open up a shop called Sweet Peas and Teas. However, in my mind, I always was like, oh, it'll be a passion project after I've made a bunch of money. It'll just be something that I do for fun. Versus like she's like, well, why don't you just do it now? Like, why do you have to wait until you're successful? Like, maybe that's the thing that will make you successful. And I was like, no, I didn't think about that.
Isn't it funny when
Because in my
somebody just
vision,
comes in, somebody's just like, hey, well, why not now? And you're like, "Oh, well, I don't know."
yeah. Yeah. And then I also, looking at my vision, I never wanted to really be a coach. I just wanted to create content for people. Like I wanted to be more inspiring versus coaching. And I was like, okay, well, maybe this is why I'm not having fun. I have fun. Like I enjoy making content. And I enjoy making content without the need for doing sales. Because being honest with you, like sales are it's not my forte. It's not my favorite thing to do.
Yeah.
It's just, that's could be for someone else. I like being the vision, being the creative. I don't mind being in the back room creating things without anyone seeing me. Like I'm okay with that. However, yeah, I want to be creating things. And so I love doing content and I just want to make money making content versus coaching. And I enjoyed making courses. However, having to show up and be on a Zoom and like I don't mind having conversations again with people, but I'd rather just create stuff that inspire people versus actually like diving in.
I love it. Well, I mean, in the entrepreneur industry, if you're in the online space, creating content is like your number one freaking thing.
Yeah.
Whether you're a coach or not, if you need the content in order to attract the people, in order for people to know you, love you, trust you, and then they'll want to buy from you. But there is that sales process. And maybe
Yeah.
somebody else can do that part. That's what's I think great about having a team for me, right? It's like I'm not really into the creating of the graphics and stuff. I'm more into like purging out of my brain, out of my mouth, whatever spirit wants to come through. But then for
Yeah.
them to they send it out in an email or they'll edit this podcast and put it up on the platform. I'm more of like, whatever comes out my mouth, turn it into something. Like, turn it into something for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see that. I can see that
Yeah.
about you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh my
You have a
gosh.
lot of you have a lot of great insights. And I do think about like when I was in your programs, there's a lot of things that I'm like, oh yeah, that's what she meant.
That's what?
I'm like, oh yeah, that's what she meant.
Oh,
Like
great.
later, even still, I'm like, oh, okay. You know?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
never stops, right? We get this aha moment and we can go back to something and be like, oh my gosh, take something new away from it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Self-development, all this stuff. Oh my gosh. I love that you came on the podcast. Where can people find you?
So you can find me on Instagram, you can find me on YouTube, you can find me on TikTok and Facebook as Rae Grillo.
Okay, you're all across the platforms. RAEGRILLO. I love it. And you are inspiring and you share a myriad of topics,
Mhm.
and just listening to her on the podcast, you could obviously tell she's really into self-development and self-awareness. And that's what we all need to be aware of so that our lives get better. Otherwise, you're just going in that same circle all the time. And again, I love that you were like, it came to the point where I'm like, have to be logical. Am I being disciplined or what am I doing? Am I getting the results?
Yeah. And I
Yeah,
think, speaking on that again, I think it's like the stress. Like when you're like stressed and fearful, that it's really hard to create anything from that space.
true that. True.
Yeah.
It's true that. One of the things I tell myself is my job as an entrepreneur is to wake up and feel amazing. Because if I feel amazing, I'm going to produce the shit out of that day and shit's going to
Mhm.
get done. If I'm feeling doubtful or anxious, um, the day is messed up. The whole day's messed up. I can't come from that place to support my clients or to attract my clients if I don't feel good.
Yeah. And those days just sometimes it's just like, oh, well, you know what? I'm just gonna sit on my patio.
Yes, yes, ma'am. And there are those days, and that's okay too.
Mhm,
But just becoming aware if it's becomes more and more of those, and are you avoiding and
mhm.
um is there a shift that you do need to make, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. And it's good that you have a team, you know? And then also those group sessions that you have. It's like, okay, well, I have this for the day, like having that scheduled in. And then, yeah, that's where the discipline part. Oh, and I guess like I started school last week. So now I'm like, okay, like I'm not the school type of person at all. However, I started school, I'm going to school, I'm trusting the process. I felt promptings from spirit to, to go to school. So I'm listening. I'm actually listening this time. And I do feel like there's gonna be some like growth, and I feel like it's gonna get me used to being on the computer because online. I feel like it's gonna get me used to being on the computer again and staying disciplined so I can actually like stand and like be in that vibration of like creating things through the laptop and having that lifestyle again. So you never
Beautiful.
know. Like maybe you have to go through some things because it will get you, help you on the path to get to where you want to be.
To get where you want to be. And I think reevaluating where it is that you want to be is really important too, because you can lose your sight of your vision
Mhm.
just by going through the motions. So yeah.
Yeah, that's important. Like I read this. This is the Think and Grow Rich workbook. I read my statement of desire every single day. I'm like, okay, like I'm not just getting up and I'm just like going to work. Like this right here, the vision, like that is so important. And yeah, you're right. Like having that in mind, because there's some days where I'm like, oh man, like I've been here a lot longer than I thought I would be. So I need to continue on and remember my vision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I cannot wait to share this.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me and thanks for reaching out. Now it's good to talk to you always. I always think of
Yes.
like, you know, being in second grade and like seeing you and spending the night over. I do think about that a lot.
For those of you guys that don't know, right? People are like, wait, what? She was spending the night
Oh,
at my house in second grade. She's my daughter's friend.
yeah, daughter's friend.
She was
I
my
remember
daughter's friend.
I remember that you being like a real estate agent.
Yeah.
And so like, yeah, when you said that you didn't like you had to get a job, I was like, oh yeah, like you didn't really have any like usual, you're always sort of like on that entrepreneur path.
Always. Yes. For like almost 12 years, I want to say now. Yeah. So, and trading time for money is not my greatest joy either, but I really wanted to hear your take on it after I heard that you were working again. And not just because you're working again, but because the thought process that you had behind it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fascinated. So, thank
Thank
you.
you. All right. Well, everyone listening, buy her courses because they're amazing. Honestly, they help me a lot. So